What's cracking, guys? Omar Isop here, back with another video, back with Dr. Mike. How you doing?
I've been better, but not much better.
Oh, okay. If you said you were doing terrible, I wasn't going to press you any further. You know? Well, as long as you say you're doing at least pretty good.
Yeah.
Back here, filming more content for you guys. Dr. Mike is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to lifting. He literally has a PhD when it comes to physiology, exercise physiology.
Sport physiology. God, man.
Only exercise.
Describe me as a pedestrian.
It's sports physiology.
Technically sports physiology.
And so you came up with a great topic today, which is actually something that most people don't think about, the process of developing an effective program for an individual, where people, you'll see something like a magazine, you'll buy a program, cool, you want to get jacked, you want to lose weight, whatever. You get a program, maybe it's kind of working for you, and then you just completely change it. So you change the reps, the sets, the volume, the exercise. You do so many different variables, and you can't really identify what's effective for the person. So maybe for those that are inclined towards trying to develop the best program for themselves, how do you actually do that? Like, what is this process, as you're talking about? Because you take a very methodical approach to things.
3 rules. Change things 1 at a time, or 2 at a time. Allow them their course, which is usually several months, and come back and recheck to see if there's a different response later. So, examples. When you want to see if leg presses grow your legs, like let's say you're doing, let's not make any extremes, let's say you do 10 sets on average of quad work per week. Just an example. Would you do better with 8 sets of leg presses, 2 sets of squats, or 8 sets of squats, 2 sets of leg presses? Just the question, just as an example. The first thing is we only want to change a couple things at a time, or just one, because we really want to know if that change is what caused the change, right, in our physique. So if you make the change from 8 to 2 to 2 and 8, and you start training like that, if you also add in lunges, but you subtract leg extensions, and you start doing posing practice more, or you're also training for a powerlifting meet, how the hell do you know if it's the 8 to 2, 2 to 8 that actually changed anything?
Right? Try and judge what's working.
No clue. The next thing is to make sure that you take that process out long enough, because if you think your quads are going to grow, for example, let's say, for example, that you trade in the squats or leg presses for the squats, and then you're doing way more squatting. Let's say the overall degree of disruption and overload is huge now compared to what it was. The first couple of workouts with incredibly overloading volumes, there's way more, let's say, over your MRV, well, actually going to be incredibly productive because you're taking advantage of functional overreaching. And also, you're just going to be so sore and so disrupted that you're going to hold a lot of water in your muscles. You're going to have an enormous pump. Like, if you just decided to do the biggest chest workout of all time, like, that's not sustainable, but you'd get a fucking gnarly pump that day, and maybe like the next day.
You might think to yourself, like, wow, I got
this is it, right? So then 2 weeks later, you're like, for sure, like, people say, like, yeah, last Monday I started fucking squatting more and leg pressing less, and the results are amazing. What results, motherfucker? You have no idea, right? So do that shit for, I would say, usually at least a month, but 2 to 4 months is my guess of whatever big change you're making in your program. 2 to 4 months. Rock it out. Do the deloads, come back up, come back down, everything. And then you'll find out if there's a measured improvement in your performance on the quad exercises, if there's a different look to your quads, your measurements might even have changed. Because, like, for example, once your quads get stronger for reps, lunges, leg extensions, hack squats, everything gets easier, right? So you're like, okay, clearly, like, my quads are fucking bigger because I'm just the man at everything now. So carry out that process. That's point number 2, right? So first, don't change a lot. Second, let it ride. And if it's really shitty, you'll know pretty soon that it's not sustainable, and you don't have to write. So, for example, don't turn this into masochism. We're like, yeah, my knees broke off yesterday because the program sucked so much, but Dr. Mike said 2 to 4 months, so I've got another 3 months. You're like, don't do that.
If you see some early signs, this shit's just not working for you.
Totally.
With the variable.
Totally. And it has to be, like, not an extreme thing, but it's got to be a serious thing. Like, I'm tired or I'm too sore. That's not really a good sign. Keep cranking it. But if your performance starts to drop off, cut it off, right? Or if it's some stuff really hurting or some kind of knee pain and stuff, stop. This is where the last point comes in. How do you know if it wasn't just random chance or some shitty circumstances that caused that drop off to occur? Maybe you were onto a good thing. Like, for example, if you like, this is a sweet example. Ready? If it's your first time trying filet mignon and all you've ever had is chicken, somebody takes you to a steak place, but it turns out one of the disgruntled employees that got fired earlier comes back dressed as a clown, and he just starts projectile diarrheaing everywhere. And that was your experience with filet mignon, where you're like, oh, there's a happy clown, and he's like, ah, and he shits everywhere. You're like, oh my god, oh my god. You may think the filet sucks.
Right.
You'd be like, hey, filet, and you're like, oh no, god, clown. Is there a clown? You're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What clown? And they're like, I had this thing, right? So maybe you should try filet again later without any angry projectile diarrhea-ing clowns. So if something doesn't work for you, don't just abandon ship. Try it again 2 to 4 months later, or 2 to 4, maybe half a year later, maybe even a year later, under some slightly different circumstances with other lifts involved, and then run its course again same way and see if it again fails you, or it works in the other way too, where something was just amazing, right? You're like, yeah, I fucking started doing cable flies with my fucking, say what, yeah.
I love it, bro. Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Fucking, I used to do flies like this, but I turned my shit in like fucking Pinky, and it just fucking blew my pecs up, right? And then you repeat that 6 months later, and it just feels like nothing. I mean, nothing happens. And then someone's like, so what else did you do back then? Your answer is, I don't know. So, okay, fine. Or you're like, yeah, that's also when I first started creatine. It's like, no shit, you're gonna get big pumps, right? Is it the Pinky stuff? So
creatine, so take a look at everything.
Totally. It's like, well, it's one of those, like in the world of bodybuilding, like you got to be covert, about the drug thing, but it's like a pro will hire like a prep coach and be like, yeah, the way he's got me turning my knees in and out for hack squats, what brought up my quads. Yeah, we bumped your growth hormone dose by 2, right? And then your fucking quads got bigger. So
and the knee turn, bro.
Totally, exactly. It's all about this fucking angles, right? So basically, you got to repeat the shit under similar or even slightly different conditions to see if there's really any validity to it. So for example, let's say something like super simple, like will incline benching 4 reps properly controlled within MRV make your upper pecs bigger? Yes, right? So like if you do that for 8 weeks and they make your pecs bigger, sweet. Then you do it like 6 months later, you do another cycle of heavy incline bench work, it's gonna again work, and you're like, well, I'm onto something, right? But if it doesn't work the second time, maybe try it a third time, and if it doesn't work the third time, this is abandon ship, right? But if it keeps working for you, keep doing it.
Here's a quick question then for this 3-step process of being more methodical when it comes to training, the process of trying to develop the optimal program for the individual. When we take a look at the potential variables we can manipulate, can you just name a few of them, and maybe like what are, there's so many, but like what are the likely culprits of what you should tackle first?
How much training you're doing, probably one of the most important. Minimum effective volume is the least amount of volume you need to grow. Like if I told you bench program, 3 sets of bench a week, you'd be like, but I'm not going to get better. And you're like, no, it's nonsense. It's magical the way they work. So, right, at least, maybe 6 or 8 sets of chest work a week is what you need to grow at all. And then not above your MRV, maybe 20 sets a week or so. Like if like German volume training is 50 sets a week, like you're just going to die at some point. They're going to find you under the bench. Yeah, exactly. But people are like, damn, he's kind of jacked. Or he was. If you're dead but jacked, that's like a 50%. Like it's not a 0.
Yeah, you get the... like you did some things.
Notable effort was done. That's what like they put on your death certificate. Notable effort, notable death. So the volume's important, right? So like finding out what those 2 numbers are for you and getting somewhere in between them, or usually cycling in between them, like starting one of your mesocycles or your blocks at the lower end and going to the higher end and repeating, like that's a big feature, right? So for example, you could try a program, which you build, which is like 10 sets of leg work, and then maybe another a couple months later you could try 15 sets on average, and then a month later you could try 20 sets on average and kind of see which one of those works best for you. Like that's an example. Volume. Another one's average intensity. People are like, I tried to go heavy on biceps and it worked or it didn't. So for example, your average biceps, your average reps could be 15 for a program for a couple of months, and then your average reps for biceps another couple of months could be like 8, right? And I mean average reps, because sometimes your reps can change. You could start a set doing 10s, but you get tired, so you're doing 6s at the end. So like when someone's like, yeah, I feel like including more heavy biceps work helped, it's like, okay, if it's objectively on average heavier, then you can conclude something, right? And that's why, especially when you're an intermediate, you're going to grow at least somewhat with most things. That's when it's good to try a little bit more of the extremes. So you can learn yourself. So for example, let's take the biceps. You do only sets of about 15, average of 15 for biceps for like 2 months. Check the growth, see how it's going. If it's great, sweet, note it, okay? Then for a couple of months, try like an average of like 8 reps, right? Check the growth, see how it's going. If it's about the same growth between the two, because of the way fast and slow twitch fibers work, you probably need to mix in a spectrum. Like, so every mesocycle should have some 8s and some 15s and everywhere in between. Or you could do, 2 months of 15 on average, 2 months of 8 and go back between the two.
Sure.
But on the other hand, if, for example, on the 15s, you just fucking rocked ass and it was crazy pumps and you just were just jacked. But on the sets of 8, your just elbow started hurting and you never got a pump. Like, maybe you're not as fast twitch as you thought, you're more slower twitch,
right.
Dominant in the biceps, and then maybe you can have a program which just occasionally goes for heavy weights, or maybe just has a couple of heavy sets per week. Like, for example, when you come into the gym, let's say it's bicep day or whatever, or biceps are part of the workout, maybe the first couple of sets, like 3 sets can be heavy, like 6s or 8s, just to stimulate those fibers, but then the last 5 sets, like the majority of them, could be like sets of 15 or so. So it's good to, as an intermediate especially, to really try some, not crazy shit, but some to test your limits to see what really works and what really doesn't, and a mix of them is usually going to be best at the end, but what proportion that mix comes in is going to determine how you respond to the more purified version. Because I'll tell you this, not mistake, missed opportunity for intermediates and beginners is just doing everything all the time. You get decent growth. How the fuck do you know if everything in the same measure is good for you? It's like
working for you.
Totally. It's like, to use the extreme example, it's like, well, when I eat like my plate of ice cream and shit, like it tastes on average pretty good. And someone's like, watch this. They take away the ice cream, you just eat the shit, and you're like, I love eating shit. This is great. And you never knew about it, right? Well, I think I said that wrong. But anyway, the other way around. So like it's one of those things like, why was I ever doing this dumb shit to begin with? Right. But you never can learn unless you get rid of the ice cream altogether. Just eat shit for a while, basically, and you're like, well, something's wrong here, right?
You need to be able to filter through everything.
Totally.
I will say this. I think this is something that a lot of people might not think about because just taking a look at the average gym bro, most people are kind of program hoppers where they'll go from one thing to changing 80 different variables. Like everything about the program, they'll just completely change. Rather than taking, if you're an intermediate, maybe more that methodical approach where you analyze one variable, change it, see how it goes, and then go from there. And that also implies a little bit of maturity on the lifter that is necessary because it also implies you're going to be lifting for a while. Dr. Mike, I think you clearly exhibit how much knowledge that you have, and this is only, what's cool, scratching the surface of a lot of different topics. Like if you read his articles when it comes to particular body parts, how to train them, it's not 1 page, it's not 2 pages. How many words are those articles? Like probably 15, 20,000, is it around?
It's art to me. I don't count the words,
I don't count. But this is, again,
I can't count also.
Those that are serious about lifting, those that are interested in getting more jacked, getting leaner, just kind of discovering the science of lifting, I highly recommend checking out Dr. Mike's stuff. Where can people find you?
Insert joke here about not wanting to be found.
Oh yeah,
compulsory joke. Yeah, that's right. So renaissanceperiodization.com. Check the blog or type in. Here's a cool thing to type in: volume landmarks Renaissance. Type that in, and there's a huge, or type in volume landmarks central hub. It's a hub of connected articles and videos and instructional manuals on how to get maximum hypertrophy recommendations for all of the body parts of the human body. Yeah, it's really sweet. It's completely free.
Yeah.
We just need your email, social security number, your bank routing number, and account number. I'm just kidding. No, it's literally just a website. There's no questions asked. There's no crazy pop-ups.
Like, what?
Okay. Also, there's a Nigerian prince that's related to you, and you've just inherited lots of money. So, but check out that volume guide, and then check me out at RP Dr. Mike on Instagram, at RP Strength on Instagram. That's Renaissance Periodization's Instagram. Much cooler than mine. Way more attractive people than me, tastier food than I put up. And then Facebook, Mike Israetel, and renaissanceperiodization.com. If you can spell that on a first try without Google's recommendation, you're probably a lot smarter than me. Come work for our company.
Come on over here. Guys, if you like this video, make sure to like the damn video. Also, because as I understand it, there might be a Toronto collab in the works sometime 2018. Post below what other topics you want to see Dr. Mike cover, and we'll see all you guys, my rascals, in that next video. Peace.
Nick's gonna kill me for this.
No.
Renaissance periodization.
Yeah, go.
We're all about the science. We are offering, just developed, now it's barely there, but I can say it finally.
You can say it.
A 4 femtosecond workout. It is incredibly small. It's like an atomic scale fraction of a second. Now, we actually needed a nuclear regulatory license to test this. basically you get into an arc reactor and we turn it on for just a little bit, but you're gonna get so big. Remember the Hulk? The Hulk was zapped with radiation. What happened to him, Omar?
He got pretty damn huge.
I mean, maximally jacked.
Maximally.
You're gonna get Hulk-like results, and we'll put a little scoop of HMB in there for you, so you could just take. I mean, like it's like cake, but then there's icing.